Do you need a power station run on tool batteries? Let's find out. This is the RYOBI ONE+ 18 volt power station, battery inverter, battery charger, and several more things. But basically it's a power station built around the RYOBI ONE+ 18 volt batteries. Now there's 8 battery ports on here, but you don't have to run 8 batteries to get full power of 1800 watts of output. Now let's dig in and look at the details of this. It might look a lot like the 40 volt version of this that we've already reviewed, but it's actually quite different, and there's quite a few features that the 40 volt does not have. This is the RYOBI 18 volt, 1800 watt power station battery inverter. Has a place for 8 18 volt ONE+ batteries, so 4 on this side and 4 on the other side. Now you don't have to have all 8 in there to actually use this. It also acts as an 8-port battery charger as well. So you can put all 8 batteries in here, plug it in, and it will charge your batteries for you. It's not going to be a fast charger, but it will charge them at least while they sit in there if you have it plugged in. We'll go over all that here in a few moments. Now, max output on this is 1800 watts continuous and 3000 watts for startup. So we'll test that and just see how long it will run at 3000 watts, or at least 1800 plus, before it actually cuts out. Now the size of this is not actually that big. It's about 13 inches tall, not too wide either. With the handles, you're looking at about 12 inches wide on the handles, and it is pretty lengthy at right at 19 inches long, maybe a little more than 19 inches long. Now weight by itself is not going to be that much, but of course that's going to increase dramatically. So 14 pounds, 15 ounces, so right at 15 pounds for the power station alone. Let's throw in some batteries before we talk about it anymore. And I'm just going to grab some typical 4 amp hours. And it doesn't matter what size they are. I'm going to put 2 over here. And by the way, you can run this on a single battery. So you can see I can power this on and run this with just 1 battery up to 450 watts. With just 4 batteries, you will get the max output of 1800 watts out. Now, obviously, as far as watt hours, as far as capacity, that's really going to be determined by the size of your batteries. But as far as performance or immediate output, that is not determined by the size of the battery. Any size batteries, if you have 4 of them, will output up to 1800 watts, and with 2 of them, or with just 1, you can output up to 450 watts. So if you're powering something small, you can do that with just 1 battery. Now understand, it's converting the 18 volt batteries into 120 volts of output, or whatever actually you're sourcing, because there's some USBs here on the side as well. But it is an inverter, meaning it's using some energy to actually transform or convert that voltage from 18, stepping it up to 120, and into other voltage like 5 volts at the USB, things like that. So you're not going to get 100% of the battery capacity through this inverter and out through the output without losing anything. You're going to lose a little bit of that in here. Now granted, it may be 6, 8, 10%, but you are going to lose something in the inverter process of the voltage. Now you can see right here on the side we have 2 USB Type A ports at 12 watts. We have 2 more USB Type A ports, but they're the quick charge at 18 watts. And then we have 2 USB Type C ports that are PD 45 watts apiece. Actually, that's probably 45 watts total output between the 2. But regardless, if you have 1 plugged in, you can get up to 45 watts out. Now here on the front panel, we have an LCD screen where we can read the status of each of the batteries. It also tells us how much power we can put out, so up to 1800 watts. It gives us a session time as well. So I've had this on for about 3 minutes now. This is the power on button, so hold this to power on, hold this to power off. And then even once it's on, as I was mentioning, that inverter running, to actually turn that on, we have to push the AC power button. So I can push this on. Actually have to press and hold to turn on. There we go, and now it turns it on. And now we're actually starting up that inverter. You may hear a fan running. You may not initially, but once you start taxing that, you'll probably hear the fan run. We have 320 volt outlets right here at 15 amps with, again, a max output of 1800 watts. Circuit breaker button here, so if it trips, we can push that and reset it. And then we can also run another power station in parallel with this one. So you can really double your capacity and double your output at 3600 watts if you want to, by paralleling two of the power stations together. The three small buttons here on the right, the top one's going to control this little light here. We can use it as a work light, in bright, in low, as well as there's a red light and then a red flashing light also. So just press the button to cycle through and then turn it off as well. And then we can even control the dimming brightness of the LCD screen. Press it again, a little brighter, and then that's going to go into off, and then low, and then high. So we have an off mode where it's going to maybe save a little power, so we can cycle through those right by pressing that button. And then this button here is going to hold to pair, because we can actually connect this to the Gen Control app. So here's the Gen Control app, and you see it connects right there to the actual unit, and it tells me how much watts we have going out, which is none. I can turn off the AC power if I want to right there from the app, and you see as quick as I touch the button here, it turns it off and on right there, so very quickly. I can even shut down the unit. So if I go to shut down, I actually have to hold the yes down for a few seconds, let that bar come all the way across, and then actually shut down the machine. You'll also see I'll get a notification that comes up that says, hey, I can't connect, which obviously because our power is off. Tells me that shutdown was successful. Do I want to unpair or scan again? So let me just turn this on. And it should connect automatically without me having to pair again. I'm just going to click this to scan again. And now it says reconnection in progress. And you can see right here in the app that I have a battery in 1, in 2, in 5, and in 6. And it tells me the status of each as well. So pretty cool little app here where we can actually see the status of batteries. So maybe you're indoors or in a tent or whatever it may be, and you're just checking the status of the batteries. You can do that. You can even add your second generator and even look at total run times, things like that. Now, if you'll notice, you'll see a USB Type-C port here on the front of the machine. This is for charging, and so with it you get this little charging block right here, as well as the USB Type-C to Type-C cable, so Type-C on each end, and that's how we can actually charge the device. Very simple charging block and USB Type-C cable. Now, interestingly enough, this is also where you would actually connect a solar panel. So the solar panel would have to have a USB type out from the solar panel and then into a Type-C, as you see here, which RYOBI has a solar panel, and we'll go over that here in one moment also. Now, I kind of alluded to that really your output as far as capacity, so how long will it run, is really determined by your batteries. And depending on which batteries you're going to put in there is really going to determine how much runtime you'll get. And if you'll look on your batteries, like this 6 amp hour, it's very easy to calculate. If you take 6 amp hours times 18 volts, that's 60 and 48, so that's 108 watt hours. And if you look here on the bottom, sure enough, 6 amp hour, 108 watt hours. So there's 108 watt hours in that battery. And then if I look at the 9 amp hour, again, multiply 9 times 18, that's going to be 90 and 72, that's 162. And if you look on the bottom of this battery, 9 amp hour, 162 watt hours. So the bigger the battery, the more capacity you're going to have in this machine. And it pretty much is what it is. What you're putting in is what you're getting out with a little bit less. So now with all 4 full, let's take a look here on the back. So we have 2, it looks like PC fans here on the back of the unit. Again, you'll hear those kick on once we actually start taxing the unit and actually powering it up. And now we can see on the front here, again, our session time at 3.5 minutes, and then all 8 batteries are fully charged. So we see that quick status of those batteries, and we've got 0 watts output. Now, before we actually plug something in, these handles really double or really triple as other features as well, and they act as like a roll cage. So you can see even laying over here, it's still just laying on the handles, not laying on the battery. So that comes in very handy. So if this thing does happen to tip over, you're not worried about it resting on those batteries. Also, right here, you see these slots here on the front of the handle. The back handle's got the same thing. So that's going to act as a cord wrap. So if you got an extension cord where you're powering things off of this, you can wrap it around the bottom, and provides a way to actually wrap the cord and keep it nice and tidy without it hanging off somewhere. Now, if you really want the most out of your inverter, generator, or power station, then you may want to step up to the 12 amp hour RYOBI ONE+ battery. I'm not sure if these are available yet. They are brand new, so they'll be out anytime now if they aren't already. And on this, again, 12 times 18 is going to give you 216 watt hours out. So with 8 of these, you're looking at 1,720 watt hours of capacity. And the other cool thing about this generator is, or this power station, is that you can hot swap the batteries. So if this one were dying or dead, I could pull that off while it's going, push this one in, and it's going to read that one and actually see that it's in the port. There, if I plug it all the way in, there we go. So now it actually sees that one, sees that it's in the port. It's down a cell, but that's fine. But you can hot swap these batteries without having to shut down the machine or turn it off. But the bad thing on the 12 amp hour is you see that it actually sticks out beyond that roll cage I was talking about. So if you did have the 12 amp hours in, it is going to rest on that battery and not on the handles or the roll cage. Now, the power station does not come with the batteries, but it does come with a hood. So if it's a little moisture out, raining, something like that, you can actually put this on. Little Velcro strip in the back. Keeps it open for the fan. Turn it around front here, and we have a clear screen that you can see through, or if I need to unzip this quickly and get in there, make some changes, I can do so. So great idea for a little morning dew or just kind of keeping leaves and debris off of it, as well as you have a little pocket here on the side where you can put in your charger and your cable and keep that nice and tucked away as well. Now, an accessory that you can get is the RYOBI 60-watt solar panel. Now, this is a folding solar panel, and it's magnetic here, so when it closes together, you don't have to have any snaps or cords or anything like that, any Velcro. It's actually going to magnetize together, so pretty cool. Little easily transportable solar panel. Also right here in the integrated pocket, there's some different tips, as well as a typical tip here that you can connect and daisy chain solar panels together. We also have a USB Type-C out and a USB Type-A out at 24 watts and at 45 watts max. And this is also where you will actually charge the power station from the solar panel. So that's one thing you'll need. You'll need a longer USB Type-C to go from this panel to the front of the unit. But just a very handy little solar panel from RYOBI as well. And again, it's pretty cool that it folds out. You can set it up. And right here on the unit itself as well are also little kickstands that Velcro down. So one on this side, one on this side. So very easy to set those up and very quickly do so. Now we've got a pretty good way of testing these power stations, and it's a pretty bright way as well. So we've got some 500 watt halogen bulbs wired up here to individual switches. Each switch actually calls on 1,000 or two 500 watt bulbs, but what we can do is take a bulb out or two and act as just 500 watts and then call those on and see how the power station actually handles it. Go ahead and plug our units in. Number 1, number 2, and number 3. All right, let me get my welding helmet on. Let's turn on the AC ports. There we go. So now we're running on the AC side. Let's call on one switch. So that's 2 bulbs, and it says it's pulling 994 watts. So 993, 991. So right at 1,000 watts. Let's call on the second one. Now we hear the fans kick on in the back, and it's pulling 1,856 watts. So we're already over the claimed 1,800 watts. It's running it sustained right now. Just want to let this run for a minute or so to make sure that it will run it. You see all the batteries are already starting to pull down. So it's running continuous at 1840, 1850. So definitely pulling out some wattage. Fans are kicking on in the back, both of them running pretty high. I'm going to call on a third. And this is probably going to trip it pretty quickly, but let's see. We're at 2201. Let's flip it. Yeah, so right away it actually tripped the unit. It says it's gone into overload. The lights are flashing. So I'm going to turn off the AC. So I'm going to turn off the AC. So basically all I had to do was hold that down and it reset it. Oh, let me turn my switches back off. Here we go. Now we're reset. Now it's ready to go again, and I can instantly call on one of those and it's not going to have a problem running that. So it's already pulling 1,000 watts out again. And now 1,800. But what's interesting is when it says that it will take that 3,000 watt startup, as soon as I flip that switch and it goes, it doesn't even get close to 3,000, but it instantly trips the unit. So I'm a believer in that it will run 1,800 watts. I'm not a believer in that it'll do a 3,000 watt startup because, as I mentioned, even at, say, 2,800 watts out, it's not even running it longer than a second or two. It's interesting, once it quits pulling, it looks like it's balanced out a little bit, and reading that most of these batteries are still full. So while it's drawing on the batteries, we're definitely seeing the capacity drop as far as how the inverter is actually reading those. Turn that off. So now let's see if these batteries come back as far as on the status. Yeah, those two have. That one did. And again, I'm sure this is just an interpretation of the voltage that it's actually reading on the pack. So you can't really go by, this as an exact measure, but it is interesting when the batteries aren't under load, it's reading a different voltage on them. Okay, so what I did was on the third set, I actually unhooked one of the 500 watt bulbs, so it should only call on one additional 500 watts, which should be about 2,500 watts, and let's see if it trips it as quick. So turn on my AC, and then let's call on the first set. So no problem there. Second set, just like before, no problem there. So probably 1850. And now we're going to add another roughly, say, 450, 500 watts. So we should be at about 2350 or so, 2400. Yeah, instantly, even with adding 500 watts, so not even getting close to the 3,000, it trips it and goes into overload. So running 1800, 1850, not a problem, but running over that by any means, and it's really having a problem. Now, one thing about the RYOBI folding solar panel, very easy to set up. It literally took seconds to open it up, expand the legs out, lean it against the legs, hook up the USB Type-C cable, and then plug it into the front of the unit. And you can also fine-tune the panel so that you can change the lean to make sure that you're getting that best facing of the sun to get as much output as possible. And you can see here on the panel with the Type-C plug plugged in that now it tells us our input watts, which the sun just went behind the cloud. So it's at 9 watts, 10, 12. Now it's going up. So as the sun comes out, going to go up to now 33. You're probably rarely going to get a full 60 watts, but you can get up there in that 50 range as long as you're aiming it correctly. Now, when it's in charging mode, you cannot actually use the power station. So it doesn't actually work both ways. You have to either be charging or discharging. One thing we've noticed in testing generators and power stations is that a lot of times the instant power output that they claim to have for like startup, like the 3000 watts, we really can't seem to hit that mark with any type of certainty. In other words, we try to push it past the limits and it instantly goes out in trip. Now it claims that it can handle a startup, so like a refrigerator starting up or something like that, that would have kind of a surge initially and then would fall off, but anytime we pushed it over, say, 2,000 watts or so, it instantly tripped that. Now, I'm really not holding a lot against that because we pushed it a little beyond the 1800 running watts at 1850, and it just sustained that for as long as we wanted to run it. So it did that very well. Just didn't do well of really peaking at that 3000 watts. So I'm not sure how long it should be sustaining that, but we couldn't see that it would do it longer than a second or so. But regardless, as you saw, we were definitely pushing it past the 1800 sustainable or running watts that it absolutely did very well. Now, as far as capacity, as we mentioned, it's really going to be determined by the size of batteries that you put in it, and you're going to lose a little bit of that from the converter process or the inverter process where it's converting the voltage. The solar panel worked really great. I mean, it was pretty much seamless, just plug it in. Now, we did notice that if the sun went behind the clouds and there was no wattage or no voltage coming out, and it reads watts here on the front, that it would go into like a beep, where it would beep every few seconds, letting you know that there's no input. And as soon as the sun came out from behind the clouds and it hit, say, 8 or 10 watts and it started reading that, then that beep went away. So you didn't have to do anything, but it does need to have some sunshine on those panels when you have it plugged in. And it's just like the other power stations in the tool battery industry that you can't run this two ways. In other words, you can't charge it and discharge it at the same time. You're doing either or. As soon as you plug that USB Type-C cable here on the front and it's reading any type of input, it shuts down the discharge or output through the AC or the DC outlet. Now let's talk pricing on this. You're looking at $650 for the bare tool, or for the bare power station, which comes with just the power station, no batteries, the charger, and the little rain hood. And then the solar panel is going to run you $250 for the 60-watt solar panels. Pricing on these is rather stout if you're needing to purchase all the batteries with this. But if it's something where you already have all the batteries and you're wanting to get into a power station for $650, not a bad price to pay for that 1800 watt output. Now again, there are other things on the market that do have that two-way technology that is probably about the same price once you bought batteries, or maybe even a little cheaper, and integrates with more different types of solar panels that may save you a little money, but again, you're not running the batteries that maybe you already have for your tools. So that's definitely the perk in this situation. 3-year warranty on the power station, 3-year warranty on the solar panel. We'll have links in the description to both of these, so check it out for yourself. Also, keep track of us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and even TikTok. And if you don't mind, would you hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already? And by all means, did you hate our video? Well, give us a thumbs down, but would you let us know in the comments why? Have a great day. Keep smiling.